Aloha and welcome. I'm Zecharia Lessin and my husband Dr. Sasha Lessin, and we are here to present perks, problems, and pledges from our Anunnaki makers. And Dr. Lessin and I both studied with Zecharia Sitchin, who you know wrote The 12th Planet and a whole series of books on the Anunnaki based on the ancient Sumerian and Akkadian text and their translations. And Dr. Lessin studied with studied at UCLA anthropology, so has a PhD, anthropology, and master's in psychology. So we've been researching this information since Zecharia Sitchin passed the torch to Dr. Lessin back around 1998. He said, I'm preparing for passing this on. Please, Dr. Lessin, create an educational program on the Anunnaki. So this is one of our efforts to bring this information to you, and I'll let Dr. Lessin introduce me. Do you want to say anything more about yourself? You have a lavender.
Oh, that's right, I do. well, Janet, of course, is my co-student and co-creator of all this, and we work together. And what she does that's different is the feminine perspective. And we'll go through the same events, like you'll see at one point. We go through the contributions of these three scientists. They were a team, Nimma, Enki, and Enki's son, Ningishita. They were a team, genetic team. And everybody most people that study this just minimize the role and importance of Nimma, who was so critical. And so that I don't notice that as much as Janet does. And when she identifies with the feminine characters in this historical drama, she gives it a depth that mine just doesn't have.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so we're going to look at what we got from these people that claim to be our genitors. And I can tell you now that they were grafting on material that was already here. But let's just look at it in some detail. Next slide. We're going to look at the blessings, the problems and the curses they left, and what they promised to do about it. Next.
Probably if you're standing right next to that speaker, you probably feedback, so step back behind that. And also that handheld mic shouldn't be sitting right.
Yeah, I got to be able to read this. That's why I'm here. Yeah, I can't. Okay, I got to be able to read this. No, okay, I'm fine. I got to read it. Okay, so these are big guys compared to us. And there's one of their leaders. His name's Shamash. And when you stand this figure up, you can just see the Homo sapiens are just these little folks. Okay, next. Okay, and we know what we know that Zecharia Sitchin chose to share with us. He translated more than anybody else of the ancient Sumerian language. He knew lots more than he told us, but he told us what he thought we could handle. Okay, but basically it's a story of these big guys who were desperate for gold to turn into monoatomic gold and float up in their atmosphere, and they knew there was gold on Earth. They wound up settling on Earth in the Persian Gulf, but there were people already here on Earth all over, but Zecharia chose not to talk about those. But so anyway, we'll go from there. Next. So I've broken this down into what did they give? That's the first one, perks. They gave us our life. We wouldn't be here talking and listening to each other if it wasn't for them. They gave us amazing science, because we're just as smart as they are. And so as teams of us look at what they were doing, we get lots and lots of stuff that we can do just because the basic ideas in geometry is all there for us. We get all kinds of technology, and they gave us crops. Nimma came to earth, and she brought seeds of grain to make beer, and she brought vines with grapes to make wine, and etc. So they gave us lots of stuff, sheep and goats, and lots of entheogens. They brought marijuana. They planted a highly DMT powerful tree, probably mimosa.
Beer.
Pardon?
Beer.
Yeah, I said grain to make beer.
Oh,
Or
grain.
maybe I just thought it and didn't say it. And they gave us a social structure. Oh my gosh, what a mixed blessing. Next. Okay, let's look at the first perk, life and genes. Okay, so this is a complicated subject. There's 2 Adam and Eves that happened in different times. Then they gave us lots of genes when the spacemen that we had stationed up on Mars came down and eloped with the prettiest girls. And then there's the person that the Bible calls Noah. And we'll talk about how he's important to us. Okay, so here's the background. They found the gold. They followed it from the Persian Gulf, and it led to Southeast Africa. And all the astronauts and heroes went home, and they asked for volunteers on Nibiru. And guys said, yeah, we'll save the planet. We'll help you dig gold. And so they were using heavy gold transports that they shipped up the Persian Gulf, and they loaded it, and they flew it to Mars as a takeoff place and flew it on to Nibiru, where they made it into white floaty gold, and it was plugging up their ozone hole, and it looked like Nibiru was being okay. And these guys in the mines said, 20 years, 30 years ago, we volunteered for this thing, and we're just eating dirt. We want out. We don't want to do this anymore. And basically, this is the energy that the scientist who was supposed to be in charge of mining listened to him. He said, boys, I'm going to get you out of this. No, I'm not ready yet. I'm going to get you out of this. And so what he'd been doing is he'd been studying this Bigfoot's ancestor, Homo erectus, who had already been on the planet. Lots of other beings were on the planet, but Homo erectus was in Africa, and Homo erectus blew these Anunnaki's minds. Now, why I say that is the society they came from almost killed everybody in a thermonuclear war between North and South. Most of the men were sterile. They really messed up Nibiru, among other things. And so these 3 scientists were amazed when they saw Homo erectus letting animals out of traps, communicating telepathically. And so the scientist, Enki, said, we could use some of that. And so they started bringing females, Homo erectus females, into their lab in Zimbabwe and making all kinds of zygotes. Finally, they decide they've got it together. They've got it together. And let's go to the next. So what Enki did is he said, boys, stop shipping gold. And that'll bring the commander down here, and then you can tell him your grievances. And so that's exactly what happened. The commander comes down, the miners surround his place. There's this big standoff. They start burning their tools, and the bodyguards, the commander's son they're ready to fight him off. And Enki walks through, and he said, wait, you don't have to do this. I have a solution. We have this. We're developing a being that'll do what we need to do with a lot of intelligence, but won't give us a lot of back talk. And the commander said, make machines. We're not supposed to make people. That's against every planetary regulations. Anyway, okay, they go back. They talk to Nibiru. Nibiru says, save the planet, keep the gold coming. That sounds like it'll work. Send the heroes home and go ahead with your deal. Next. Oh, the other thing is they found they needed mitochondrial DNA from Anunnaki women in order to make a viable child. They needed more than, and they needed chemicals. We don't know what they are, but they said they used vessels of the red clay of Africa, and that was critical. They added copper. So they added copper, genes from Homo erectus, and the mitochondrial genes, first of all, of this genius that was sort of directing the whole thing, Nimma. And she said, Enki says, hey, you know, that's a great idea. Let's put it in my wife. Her name's Damkina. And Nimma said, no, wait, this is really dangerous, putting this being inside. It's only right that I'll do it first. So that was it. This is going to be important in the story. Yeah, we're never going to finish this story, but we'll do as much as we can, okay? And so let's go to the next one. Okay, so we've been brown and white from the beginning. The first boy, Adamu is what they called him, his skin was reddish brown like the clay of Africa. His hair was kinky brown, dark brown. He was just like Nibiru males, except, you know, way shorter, like 5'4" or 5'5". And he had one difference: he had a foreskin. But other than that, he was just like the men from Nibiru, a little version of it. So let's see the next slide. I think you'll get to. What did Nimma, when you birthed Adam, what did you say?
With mine own hands I have created it, or this. What was it?
That's
I-
close
yeah,
enough, babe.
I have created it, yes. And then she didn't just birth it, she took it to her breast and nurtured it.
And that is utterly, utterly critical. And then they made a girl. And this was the second fixed zygote, and this one was in Damkina, in the wife. Do the next one. The first girl, her name was Tiamat, and you'll see in a little bit, she became an enlightened human being. But she's blue eyes, and she has sandy blonde hair. So all this racist nonsense is just that. We're all one. And furthermore, there were brown people already among the Nibiruan population. I've shown genetically how that had to be true for you to even get something that, like the Adamu. Okay, let's go next. So these parents loved this kid. Nimma and Enki really treated them, they were their children. And when the commander, Enlil, known in the Bible as Yahweh, said, hey, bring these up. I want to see the clone masters that you made. Bring them up to, you got this place up by Basra, and my place is right next door. I wanted to take a look. So the parents came. They came with their kids. And so they treated these children just like their children. And so when the commander came over and saw little Tiamat, she walked right up to him. Hi, I'm Tiamat. Look, I'm working out this geometry, and look, I made this little skirt. And she was a bright little girl, and the commander went into a rage. Go next. Oh yeah, I forgot. She got pregnant. She had some of the fruit of this tree, whatever it is. But what we know is that she was on she took some kind of psychedelic that probably had dimethyltryptamine in it, and it allowed her, when she was getting into sex with Adam, to feel her oneness and her separation at the same time. And she had a Kundalini awakening, and reflected just the way any person that's gone through that kind of an experience knows. And she was filled with love, and she was an enlightened person. That's our ancestors. Tiamat, go. Okay, throw him in. You disobeyed. She's pregnant. get these, my gosh, you have exceeded your orders to only make clone masters. What, throw him in chains. And so you see that's their symbol of electricity. He's got things on him. And little Tiamat is looking at him. Dad, what's happening, Daddy? And there's this whole drama going. There's Yahweh saying, you've defied me. You exceeded your authority. I'm going to fucking kill you. I can say that here. It's cool. Is it? Anyway, but he's everywhere Enlil goes. There's his son, Ninurta, this amazing champion who has a fighter plane with multi-headed missiles, and he's got his muscle with. Okay, next. Everybody says, come off of it. You can't. He didn't do something that's so terrible. And so Enlil says, well, send him to South Africa and have him breed slaves. Go next. So that's exactly what they did. But Enki realized that Enlil was going to try to squash anything he tried to communicate to the Earthlings. And so he started sorting out the smartest Earthlings, people he really saw was educable, and telling them the truth. We know, or his truth anyway. We came from Nibiru. He tells them the whole trip. Okay, next. Okay, so this is 300,000 years ago. For 100,000 years, it worked. Everything was going. This is the deal. People seemed to the slaves and the clones, and they were breeding themselves. They were so prolific. There was lots and lots, and it wasn't exactly like they were slaves. It was more like they dug their jobs. Some of the reports say they dug their jobs. They had a good time, and they felt they were getting a good deal. They didn't understand the gold stuff, but go on.
Just like now.
Go on next. 200,000 years ago, something happened that caused a huge difficulty all over the earth. Famines. I'm not sure exactly what the cause was, but it did several things. It ruined the transshipment base on Mars, and the slaves, if you want to call them that, or the workers, said, heck with this. We know how to grow our own food. We've been doing it all these years. We don't have to go digging their gold anymore. They're not taking care of us. They've cut back our rations. And they started wandering off. And so the commander says to Enki, these are terrible slaves. Make better ones. And Enki said, okay, boss. And go, next. So Enki found two really girls he really liked. And he had a good time with them. And he had a child with each of them. And this is the second Adam and Eve. And this is a direct genetic implant from Enki, the chief scientist. And so this is genetically the potential of the children that he has. And you'll see in a little bit that he then has children with one of their daughters. They like to do that. Next. Okay, so the little boy is named Adapa. And this kid was smarter than everybody. Yeah, he could do anything. He had his own plane. He ran all the other Earthlings. He mastered the technology. He knew how to change the weather. That's one of the things. He had mastered their harp technology. Go ahead. I already said that about the twins. They're fraternal twins. So we're saying how the Anunnaki gave us these waves of genetic inputs, the genes they gave us. Okay, another big input was when Prince Marduk decided to ally with the Earthlings. Now, I have to go a little bit back on this. Back in Nibiru, their home planet, this one king wasn't doing anything. His name's Lama. And a prince threw him off a tower and led a revolt and said, I'm king now. This guy was a guy named Alalu. And King Alalu said to the pretender, the guy who was supposed to be king after Lama was dead, we don't have to have any more civil war. I'll make a deal with you. Your son, Enki, can marry my daughter Damkina, and their kid will rule Nibiru after I'm gone. Deal, deal, deal. After a while, Anu killed Alalu, and Marduk thought he should be king of Earth. However, Anu said, I'm not giving up the throne. A treaty under duress is invalid. Besides, I'm in power now. So Marduk realized, I'm going to get back my patrimony. I'm never going to deal with these royals. They're shunning me, but I've got a chance. These earthlings are so prolific. There's only 900 of us here on Earth. There's already hundreds of thousands of them. I'm going to marry Adapa's granddaughter, beautiful Sarpanit. She's been my friend since she's a little girl anyway, and we're going to form a city where humans, earthlings, and Anunnaki can walk together in the streets. And so Nibiru said, okay, let him marry. You can never come back to Nibiru if we let you marry, and you can never bring your issue or Sarpanit. Marduk said, okay, deal. Okay, so at the wedding, I think it was at Sippar, they invited the astronaut corps because Marduk had been chief of the astronaut corps for a while. And as soon as the couple went off to Enki's domains in Africa, the Ijiji, this astronaut corps, eloped with, depends on who's telling the story, or were kidnapped by these Anunnaki who were working as astronauts. Next. They took the landing platform at Lebanon. They aimed artillery at Enlil and said, "Recognize our marriages. We want to move to Canaan or some other nice place, or Egypt, but we want lives. We want children. We don't want to take orders from the commander anymore. Agree to our terms, or we'll terminate you." So Enlil said, "Okay, I'll do that." Next. This is the Sabran women, but it's the same story. This is those bad people carried off the women, but the other interpretation, and they're both in the literature, is they arranged it and they couldn't wait for it to happen. Okay, next. The next one, we're talking about how genes entered into our population that are real important to us. Okay. So all along you have in Canaan all these people having babies. The next one that's really important was a guy that we know as Noah. And his sociological father was Enki's overseer, Lumach. I think he's a grandson or great-grandson of Adapa. Next. And so Enki, of course, had an affair with beautiful Batanash. And when her husband questioned her, he said, "This blue-eyed kid, have you had sex with an astronaut?" And she said, "No." Okay, next. Next. Okay, so after a while, this Enki knew darn well Ziasutra Noah was his kid, and he made him king of that place that has a line under it called Cherupik. That's where the medical center was. Next. Okay, and on my estimate of BCE, 9,700 years ago, something happened, and there's way more than just this explanation that caused this flooding. But what the Anunnaki wrote, and you got to understand, these guys, which Anunnaki was writing it always had a different version than the other Anunnaki and the other people that were on Earth way before the Anunnaki. But let's just say what the Anunnaki are saying is that there's this flood. It's caused by Nibiru coming, and they see the ice on Antarctica is going in a way that glaciers are going to come plunking into the South Sea and cause waves going up the Red Sea and all reverberating and hitting each other, and they make computer programs of how devastating it's going to be. And so they have a weather station down at Point Arguelles in South Africa, and so they know exactly what's happening. And so the commander calls them all together. He says, listen, this is what's coming down. I absolutely forbid you on pain of death to tell this to the Earthlings, or they'll mob the spaceports and we won't get off safely. And further than that, this is an illegal race. Enki, my half-brother, he had exceeded my authority in making a breedable species, and we're going to let him drown. And I mean it. And I'm going to send a Nerda to kill you if you get in the way of this. Swear to it. Everybody swear to it. Enki, I want you to swear to it too. Oh, okay, I swear to it too. So they start sending all these great big transports, get all the gold out, get all the people out. Anu says, tell any astronauts that want to leave the planet, otherwise go to the top of mountains. They broadcast it around their net, because by now they have stations all over. Go next. And so, go next. Next. On one of these spaceships, there arises this distinguished silver-haired person called Galzu. And he's got this parchment sealed in the way that they can recognize. And it says, I am Galzu, plenipotentiary. I speak for King Anu. You must not leave, leaders must not leave this planet's atmosphere, because you'll die, because you've become accustomed to this. You've got to orbit or go to the moon or Mars, but don't go too far away, because you're going to have to return here or you're dead. The rest of you can go, and that's it. And so they hear that, and okay. And then Galzu comes to Enki and gives him the plans, computer plans, how to make a submersible. And he's sworn. These guys are pretty funny. He's not going to tell Noah about it. He's not going to tell the Earthlings. So he goes up to Noah's wall computer. And Enki is shown with his snake logo. And he's giving this computer program that Galzu has directed him to the wall computer. This is an actual cuneiform thing that it's the plans for this thing that they're going to make. Go ahead, next. I didn't tell you, I just told the wall. Okay. So Enlil sees them building this boat. Wait, hey, what are you doing? We're going to sail down to Enki's, because he's so kind to us. He's our hero. And so Enlil likes it. Okay, it's like, you let him go, let him die down there. Go, next. Of course, they make it, and they land on Mount Ararat in all probability. And when Enki sees them down there, they're celebrating, and there's Enki's son, Ninigal, the guy who knew how to navigate to Mount Ararat. And he jumps down, and he says, Enki, I'm going to kill you with my bare hands, and I'm the commander, and I know how to fight. You're finished. And Nimrod comes down, no, brother, don't do this. And finally his son comes, hey, Dad, cool it. And pretty soon everybody says, look, we're going to have to rebuild here. We're going to have to live here. And we can take it easy. Let's take Noah's kids, rule through them as our kings. They'll take care of our needs, and we'll just have it easy. And Enlil says, yeah, well, I guess that's a good idea. Okay, next. Those are the sons of Noah. Next. Okay, so we got genes from the Anunnaki. What else we got? Now we're going to look at some of the science. We're going to look at astronomy, geography, biology, and math, stuff like that. And that's a representation of Ningishita, who is the son of Enki by Inanna's sister, Erishkigal. But anyway, go next. Way before our humans in our classical literature knew anything about it, Anunnaki were making maps of the solar system, showing Nibiru, showing the relative size of the planets, all kinds of stuff in the local heavens that you could not see with the naked eye. And these guys didn't have telescopes. They could see what's going out way, the whole thing, because they flew in. And we actually found charts showing turn left, 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 watch out for this. And just go, next. Okay, so here's what they said. And there's other explanations that could account for the same thing. But this is the one that seems, this is what they said, and Andy Lloyd pretty much agrees to this. Nibiru, their planet, goes around a different primary, not Solaris. It goes around, actually, let me show the direction. It goes in a different direction. So it's going around this other planet, which is a red dwarf. It's got a heat signature. It was shown by Harrington at the Naval Observatory in Australia before they assassinated him. And so we're perfectly aware of Nibiru. You just can't see it until recently when it's passed through, and you can see it on the horizon as the second sun. It's got its own system of moons and so forth. So it came through every 3,600 years, and then as it came close in 9703 BCE, it sped up. So doomsday, if it ever happens, ain't going to happen for a long time. Go next. The Anunnaki said there's water on Lamu, on Mars. Our scientists denied it for a really long time. And they said it was, and there's surface water on Mars. Enki's ship was overheating. They landed there and fixed their hydraulics system, filled the radiator again. Okay, next. Okay. They said there's 4 rivers that run through and come out to the into the Persian Gulf. But there's not 4 rivers. There's only Tigris and Euphrates. But when you do LIDAR, there's a river as wide as the Mississippi, a mile, that used to run through there. Plus, you can see there. And so there it is. All kinds of things that our scientists have more recently learned were already there in the Anunnaki literature. And so by Occam's razor, is this a more efficient way of accounting for some of the data? That's one of the things you'd ask yourself. And you'd say, what information would make this more likely to be a good explanation, and what would be make it show it to be a poorer contribution to understanding? So this is the kind of thing that shows us, wow, we got accurate ideas of geography from the Anunnaki. And it goes much more than that. They had a global-wide grid. They communicated. They knew how to use electricity and communicate. Go next. Let's see what else. What else did they give us? They gave us an exact map of Antarctica without its ice. Why? They saw it. And Perry Reese knew of it too. Okay, so that's another thing. You know? They did all kinds of biology. You probably know what CRISPR technology is. And that shows they tried all kinds of combinations. But because we got it too and we figured it out, we're just as smart as they are. Okay, they just have advanced information and technology. But there's nothing we can't do. We're not an inferior being at all. We're wonderful beings. Okay, next. And they made all kinds of things, and some of their human experiments turned out weird. Okay, next. Technology. They gave us, and it isn't that there wasn't earlier technology. There's people way before the Anunnaki that had very advanced technologies. But these are the guys that gave this technology to us kind of earthlings. And the first thing they did after Noah's flood is they used their technology to make it, to get the mud off, to make canals, to make dams, to make irrigation systems, putting dams in the right place. They used their technology big time, and for 1,000 years, Earth was at peace. This was the mini Sati Yoga. And some of the things they gave us, let's start looking at them. You can see these are artists' renditions of places that are actually that they wound up making. They had water all around it. They made beautiful oases. Next. And some of the things, obviously, they had all kinds of carts for different things, and that ugly thing in the far corner is a kiln, which is really critical. They made different kinds of bricks for facing, and they also had small kilns. They had been given metallurgy. The plow went through its sequence, first pulled by women, then pulled by animals, and then using all kinds of devices. They had improvement in ships. They were sailing, people from Sumer, with modern Iraq, were sailing all over the place. Next. One of the most important things is the power generation system, which works. There's many ways it works, but the pyramids, most everywhere, there's water underneath, and there's a pump that's applied to the water, and in concert with the energy that goes through the ley lines, especially just before dawn, there's a reversal, and so that's energy, and there's a pumping. It goes into chambers where hydrated potassium and HCl are combined, which creates a hydrogen explosion, which is then channeled and amplified and sent out the top of the pyramids to monoliths or to a spacecraft above. And so Thoth, Ningishita, the son of Enki, was given the responsibility of making a new spaceport in the Sinai, because the one in Iraq was just ruined. Sipar was just ruined by mud. Next. Okay. They gave us something else. They let us see things and tell our kids about it and draw pictures of it. And so because we are so smart, but mainly because we put a whole bunch of smart people and have them think together, if we see something, we can do it too. So they left ample evidence that they had rocket technology. Next. They had computers. Master computer programs that could overrun all the subcomputer programs. These were really critical things. Inanna seduced her Uncle Enki, and he got him as drunk and begged for her, and I'll show you something else, sweetheart, if you give me another one of those. And after a while, she said, I've got them all. I'm queen of the world. You're all my subjects. So these are really important, dedicated computer programs which can only be operated by certain people. And they also had computer programs built into their tiaras, sewed into their garments, and so forth. But they showed us there are devices that can plan and get it all coordinated. And eventually Leibowitz makes us, that's it. I understand what they're talking about. But anyway, go ahead. They really showed us about animal husbandry. They especially trained one of Enki's sons, Dumuzi, in how to take care of animals. Whole southeast of Africa was just plentiful with animals brought from, or else tamed locally, but brought from Nibiru. And they knew how to work with genes for animals too. Next. Nimrod brought us things that make us feel good. She was a experiment. She was like the Sasha Shulgin of her day, okay? And so she tried everything, and one of the big stories is she had this garden of everything she was trying, and she was off meditating or something, and Enki and his vizier come in, and they start sampling everything. He almost killed himself. But she brought all the stuff that they like to get high from a Nibiru here, and then she started sampling what's here. And of course, there's all kinds of good things in Africa. Dimethyltryptamine is in a number of plants. Next. They showed us how a bunch of people could live in a small space, and it was organized. They had people's courts and libraries and arts, schools, taxes. They showed us cities. It isn't that we evolved into cities. No, they showed, here's how you can do it. Not here's how This is how you'll do it. Okay, next. So there were some problems that we got from them. We identify as the number one problem dominator consciousness, thinking some people's lights are worth everything and other people's lights don't amount to anything. Chop them up for firewood. They had murderous dictators. You already see, they kill each other. They'll kill their brothers and sisters and kids. They'll do anything to be on top. That's like dictators today, ain't it? They warred with each other. They even had thermonuclear war. We'll get to that. That's what they did. Dualism, competition, who's on top. And they practiced slavery. Whatever it started out, however noble they might have made their motives, it turned out to every one of these petty guys that settled there would then send out his guys to capture the other population and enslave them and conscript the men. And there's Inanna there. I said how she got all the great computer programs. I mean, she and Sargon just, they were extremely murderous. Next. Oh, go back one. So there's other kinds of slavery too, basically. Remember, this is a misogynistic society. Men, boss, women. Women were slaves in their families. It may be different for the royals. Military, wow. There's no worse slavery, perhaps, than being drafted to have to kill other people and get killed. And they early on decided if we get people into trading networks where they have to exchange goods and services, perhaps with some medium, then we can have what we want, great wealth, without having to waste so much having wars. All the wars are fun for these guys. Okay, next. So this is one of the problems that we're left with. Rulers who'll kill to be on top. Everybody's always competing with everybody else if you have this mindset. Men are on top and shush women, and winners rule, losers do what they're told. Next. I say, so example of typical thing, Philip II had his son Alexander the Great Killer, had his father killed. Almost any royal house will tell you stories like that. It's always competing. Next. As soon as Prince Marduk got in, he had made this alliance with the humans. Oh, he's our champion, blah, blah, blah. Enlil tried to nuke him and wiped out Sodom and Gomorrah and the spaceport in the Sinai, but the radioactive cloud floated all over Iraq and killed all the Sumerians. And so they left, most of the Anunnaki left the planet to Marduk, who's now, they said I'm Yahweh and I'm Inanna and I'm all of those. But he fired all the learned women, made sure that no women had a decent job. Next. By the time Marduk starts competing with some of Enlil's people who stayed on Earth, it came to a head a lot during the reign of Queen Jezebel. This was a royal marriage of the king of Israel to the daughter of the Phoenician king of Tyre. And her deal, her shtick was tolerance. We don't have to choose one god or another. And these aren't gods. One Anunnaki or another, one lord or another is the real word. They use El. We don't. You can worship whoever you want. You can give them money. You can give them offerings. Just peace, peace, and that was the deal. And Tyre and Israel together would be a mighty trading empire. Well, somewhere along the line, either Enlil or Yahweh engineered the killing of Queen Jezebel, just like, rulers everywhere have assassins that either explicitly or implicitly follow their impulses and kill people they want to kill. Next. And that's a problem. They really use weapons of mass destruction. They use nukes, but they also use terrible things that made people's eardrums pop out and lights that blinded them and burned them to incineration. All kinds of very terrible things. You can see this in the Vedic literature as well as the Sumerian literature. But so they showed us, yeah, this is a cool way to do war. This is fun. That's what they Go ahead. Okay. This is more about their wars. This is the big war when Marduk and his son Nabu were closing in on the space facilities. Next. We did this, Enlil said, yeah, he asked for permission, he got it. Next. Nibiru said, yes, go for it. Alas. Next. They knocked out the bottom of the South Sea and became the Dead Sea, and wiped out Zoar, Sodom, and Gomorrah, cities whose sin, you know what the sin of Sodom was? They supported Marduk. They weren't particularly sexy or anything. Go next. Next. Sinai was left in tephra, little, just darkened. It was radioactive until the Israelis brought it back. You couldn't grow nothing there. Everything was dead. Next. And like I say, they didn't understand what a thermonuclear fallout would be like. And so they killed off their own subjects. That's Yahweh's job. Next. Another problem they gave us as part of the dominator set is, like I say, and you can just look at those pictures to tell the whole story. We had and have slavery to this day. Next. What do they say they're going to do about it? Oh, good. They said, look, it's obvious to me, King Anu said, that these earthlings are supposed to have the earth and not us. It's theirs. And we made them. It's our responsibility to take care of them, to see that they survive. So tell them as much as you can about technology, but try to keep it in balance with their level of ethical sensitivity, which is a weird thing for this murderer to say. But anyway, go ahead, next. So the way Marduk ran things for a long time is he had his associates, half-breeds and stuff, take over the different power centers and play them off against each other. At some point, Nanar, whose name on the Sinai is Sin, which is who Sinai is named after, said, I'm not going to let him get away with this stuff. And he came down or sent ambassadors as Allah, and these two Anunnaki factions started assassinating themselves, and this was going on until finally the Federation stepped in. And you've got to hear Michael Lee Hill, because he'll tell you he was at certain meetings where this happened. But Marduk let's put it this way. The Galzu said, knock it off. It's time to stop this. The humans have been stimulated to the point where they can achieve technology that means that they could be skyfaring and be part of the Federation. We don't have to keep forcing them by war to accelerate their technological knowledge. And so it's over. And besides that, look at the cycles. It's time for Aquarius or Enki or the Satyuga to happen anyway. And Marduk said, wow, I'm so glad. He started crying. Loki put his arm around his shoulder and said, it's okay, boss. Yeah, I know. I had to do it. They needed it. And it's okay, boss. And I'll make amends, he says. Now, he's been pretty sneaky, but in any case, many of the Anunnaki are now here. and a great day is dawning. Next, Marduk says, I will make amends. And he's one of the smartest beings around, so he could. Next. Gillian, the niece of Ningishita, Toth, had a talk with him, and he said, he left in 311 BCE after educating the Mayan priests, the people that became the rulers of the Mayan lands, and he said, I'll be back December 21st, 2012, and I'm bringing with me a whole bunch of Anunnaki, Shamash, Jesus, others, and we are going to help clean up this mess. Next. And now we have at this conference Michael Lee Hill, who basically has been recognized by the Anunnaki on Earth as, wow, you are like the embodiment of Enki in a modern body. And you can ask him anything, and he's like knows way more than any other person I do about the Anunnaki, because the Indians have recognized him as the peacemaker of the Hoso Wani, the Iroquois, and people that understand what he's saying, and it matches stuff that Wes Penray and others have taught us and shown us. This is it. We are getting big help. Okay. And then we have something else. We have Janet. I'm thinking about they gave us Janet. Janet has been to the submarine base beneath Johnson Atoll and met with the Anunnaki. And she, like Michael, who is embodying Enki, Janet embodies Nimma. And if you let yourself resonate with what she has to say, there's every possibility that we can achieve balance in a partnership society. What does Nimma have to say, honey?
I'm shy, but thank you for. I love the presentation. I haven't seen it. He works every night, gets up at 2 a.m. and just works on this stuff to get the message out to the world. We firmly believe that if people know understand what happened behind the scenes, that we can wake up and have the big aha and do something about it. We're not victims. We're not slaves. So we're here. That's why we're here. We're getting it all recorded, and we're going to take this message out to the world. We're all ambassadors to continue the work. So that's been my vision, to get this out everywhere, because we can reach critical mass and we can make this happen. And we have to. We really have to. It's shit or get off pot time. And if we don't, we're not going to be here long. But the earth will be fine without us. But the human species is so valuable. We have the metagene, which pulls all the information from all the species in the universe. This is an experiment that's been going on since the beginning of creation. And we are the end result. We are so valuable to everybody in the continuum. So I just invite you to wake up and remember who you are, because we're all critical to the solutions that are going to make this world work for all of us, not just the people at the top, for everybody. There is a way to balance it. So I don't want to get preachy, but that's what I have to say.
If you got preachy, what would you say?
No. I want to open. We've been married 21 years, and we are a couple. And we have all the dynamics of a couple. What I'd like to do is open this up for questions. I guess, can we raise the house lights a little bit at this point? Are you done with your presentation, sweetheart?
Yeah, but answering questions is certainly part of it.
It is.
Oh, turn off let me just see what happens next. Push next.
Oh, he's not sure. Okay.
Buy our books. Okay.
We have books. And when we go home, we have a couple more to write.
But they'll be right out there.
They're right out there if you'd like to. I have a special $15. It's commercial, which is my conference special. So we'd love it if you'd take a book home with you and see us for the autographs. Okay, that is the end.
So
Okay, anybody have any questions?
If this works, I'll carry it to whoever wants to ask a question. Here.
You mentioned.
Is this thing working?
Does that work? Maybe that's not
You
mine.
mentioned a date of 9703 BC, which would be 11,703 years ago, for a disaster, right, that involved Nibiru coming
Yes,
close.
yes.
Graham Hancock recently has been talking about what may be one and the same or a different event at 12,920 years called the Younger Dryas Impact Event. Theoretically, a fragmented comet hit the Earth and scorched it and flooded it and everything. So I was just curious if you thought those were one and the same event.
No,
if
I
they're two
don't. I think
different
that's
events.
very, very important what you're saying. What happened is an event occurred that Yahweh knew was coming down, and he talked to there was this Egyptian prince who was a granddaughter of Joseph, who was an Israelite, and he had been Princess Hatshepsut, who became Pharaoh, raised this kid. And so Yahweh said, look, there's going to be some really heavy stuff coming down. And what's going to happen is Thera is going to erupt. And it's going to cause waves going up, going down the Red Sea, and the Nile will retract and come back again and something. And you are of both lines. Your mother was a Jew, so you're a Jew, and your father was royal so you know you are the chosen one. And don't just take the Israelites, take the Egyptians too. Get the hell out of town. So that's another story, and that's in the Cobran Bible, the uncensored Cobran Bible. Describes the stuff that's happening, and it's put as though it's miraculous in the Bible, but it's really descriptions of gases coming out, and this may or may not be true. But if it's true, that means it corresponds with the destruction of the Minoan fleet, which had gathered and this makes total sense to me, when Marduk was in charge of the earth. Not all the Anunnaki left. Nimma went to Anatolia and that part of Eurasia. And there was a peaceful culture, the goddess culture, that spread wherever Nimma was in charge. Those cities weren't walled. There's statues of women in positions of authority. Everybody traded with everybody. And the Minos, the trading guy who operated from Knossos in Crete, maintained this peace, and the way he did it is with hostages. The princes of all the people that are supposed to, in Greeks, because Greeks were way more energetic and warlike than others, and that's because Marduk had huge influence with them. Basically, their kids came to live with the Knossos and do bull vaulting and stuff. So knowing all this was going to happen, when Marduk engineered it, so here's this volcano, it's causing this stuff in Egypt, it's wiping out the Minoan fleet, which is gathered for a celebration at Knossos, and they have a slave revolt. These hostages, Theseus had made a liaison with Ariadne, their religious leader, and so that was the end of this high, peaceful civilization. After that, we have the Mycenaean Greeks come in. There's armor, there's caches of weapons, there's slaves, there's war. So that's a little, but I digress anyway.
Also, you mentioned Homo erectus being compassionate and telepathic. That actually coordinates with a lot of the stuff I've been reading, because for 1.8 million years, all they had was a simple bifaced axe. That was the only technology that they apparently had. And that would be compatible with a society that is cooperative with one another, because when the competition enters the picture, you're always looking for that next tool to kill your neighbor. And for 1.5, 1.8 million years, that didn't exist. with Homo erectus, you know.
No need to look further. We already got it together.
So that's evidence that Homo erectus was very peaceful.
Yeah, and so, you know, in anthropology, we knew this was utter nonsense. The macroevolution is so untrue for Earth, where we have interventionism, and Earth has been successively seeded with, we did not evolve from tarsiers and lemurs and small creatures like that. There is no missing link between Australopithecine and Homo sapiens. There isn't any. You saw how we started. That's how we started. And Bigfoot's different than us, too. Bigfoot's hands come down to here. Our hands come down to here. We step on our foot and bounce on the ball. You know, we have a whole different way of walking. These guys have big, strong feet. I mean, they could outwalk us. What we have that they don't have is organization. We learned it from the Anunnaki, but organization runs amok, and institutionalization leads to governance, and the function of governance, it becomes government, and its function is theft, as you well know.
My confusion with all this is when the Anunnaki came here from Nibiru,
Yes.
they merged with the females, but the females were already here. So my conclusion is, are the Jewish people are they Anunnaki, and the rest of us came from somewhere else because they already merged with us?
No, we are all of us are this. When the Anunnaki came here, Homo erectus was already here. Homo erectus, we all have something of Bigfoot's telepathic and, most importantly, empathetic abilities. That's what we got from them. We can feel the life in tree. We can feel the life in deer. Our kitties, we know, we love them. They're our kids, you know? That's what we've got. That's what a lot of other species want in merging with us. That's the purpose of your hybrids. People that care about other people but are passionate. That's where we're going. That's the third wave. So, but it was more of the feminine side of Homo erectus. You're quite right. It was the feminine side of Homo erectus. They weren't using male gametes from Homo erectus. They were using female gametes to make the zygotes that they put in their test tubes. And that means they were also taking more mitochondrial DNA from the female Homo erectus. So you're really bringing up a fantastic point, Sky. Thank you so much. That's totally logical. So we're not just descended from Bigfoot's ancestor, but from the female Bigfoot. Yeah. Any other questions?
Dr. Ellis Silver wrote an interesting book called Humans Are Not From Earth, and it's really strange to me that a little 4-foot Australopithecine with a brain the size of an orange could suddenly overnight become a much taller creature with a much bigger brain, twice the size. So he thinks that Homo erectus was actually brought here from another planet. What do you think about that?
Oh, I agree totally. Homo erectus was introduced here from another planet. Homo erectus, I don't know if my time's run out, but basically when the Lyrans settled Atlantis, there was already lots of beings here, and there had been a long war, and there was proto-humans that were made by the Council of Hatona to end the Draco humanoid wars, and the Dracos contributed our brain stems, greed, who's on top all the time, and humanoid species contributed the other layers, and depending on where you lived. And of course, that's not the end of the interbreeding series. ETs come from many places. We are compatible with almost all people of Lyran descent, and even the Greys ultimately came from Apex, which was destroyed by the Lyrans And even though they no longer could breed without using other species in many cases, we're all Lyrians. We have heads, arms, legs, and the capacity ultimately to feel each other. And that's what all these societies that have done what they needed to do to preserve themselves want from us. That's what we have to offer. If the Anunnaki came back and says to the gold mines, boys, and we'll say, you know, we can stand up and say, what's the deal? What are you giving us? We want to be able to live like as long as you do. We want to be able to travel without polluting our environment. You know how to do all that stuff, and we, you know, we're your progeny. We grew up. It's time for us to take our power.
Any other questions, or we can just wrap it up a little bit early to make way for the next person? Okay.
All right, thanks.
Oh, thank you very much for coming to our presentation. Thank you.